My child, the case against you is closed. You have been treating the wait like a trial, reading every delay as evidence, every silence as a sentence, every unanswered prayer as if the court were still deciding whether you belong. But my word says in Romans 8:33-34, "Who shall bring a charge against God's elect? It is God who justifies. Who is to condemn?" The verdict was spoken before fear finished its accusation. You are not waiting to be condemned. You are learning to live acquitted. And right now, as these words reach you, I want that ruling to become the place you finally rest, because it was settled in a room your long wait cannot reach. Come and take the seat beside me, not the chair in the dock where the accused waits, knees together, eyes down, rehearsing a defense for charges that were dropped a long time ago. Rise out of that seat. The hearing you keep replaying in the dark is not still in session. The gavel already fell, and the sound of it was not the sound you have been bracing to hear. You have been living the long wait as if it were a hearing, and that is the first thing I mean to untangle with you. Somewhere in the stretch of months, the delay stopped feeling like time and started feeling like a trial. The silence began to sound like a jury still out. Every day without an answer felt like one more exhibit stacking up against you. You decided that the reason the thing has not come is that someone behind a closed door is still deciding whether a person like you should be allowed to have it. So you sit in that imagined dock and you wait for a sentence, and the waiting itself has started to feel like the charge. But listen carefully. Delay is not deliberation. The court is not still in session over whether you belong to me. That question was closed before your waiting ever began. The ruling came back, and it came back in your favor. You simply have not felt it land in your body yet. What you are living inside is not a trial. It is the gap between a verdict already spoken and a freedom you have not yet stepped out into. Those are two very different rooms, and the whole reason I am speaking is to move you from one to the other. So let me show you how closely I have read your standing, because this is not a word tossed to a crowded gallery. It is meant for you, in the exact weight you woke up inside of. I know the version of the accusation that meets you before your feet even touch the floor, the way the charges are read out. The instant you wake, yesterday's failures laid out like exhibits. The inner prosecutor who has memorized your whole history and recites it in your own voice. The mother lying awake, sure she has been a poor witness for her own children. The worker who has done the right thing for years and still feels summoned, still feels one mistake from being found out. The one who measures a long stretch of unanswered prayer and reads the quiet as a ruling against them. None of it is hidden from where I sit. Every whispered charge has reached the bench, and not one of them moved the ruling. A roll of grievances runs behind your eyes. You review it against yourself before the day has done a single thing to deserve the dread. The friend who used to ask how the waiting was going has gone quiet, and the empty place where their question used to be carries a weight of its own. Your prayer has thinned across the seasons, from a plea to a phrase to nothing more than a long breath aimed at the dark on the heaviest nights when you are too spent to find the words. Every one of those breaths has entered the record in front of me. And take this in before anything else. The docket you keep rereading is not the paper that settles who you are. It is the accusation. It is not the ruling. Some of you wait the way the accused waits, flinching toward the worst, certain that a pause this long can only be carrying bad news. You have trained yourself to hear every delay as displeasure and every shut door as a sentence handed down. When a small mercy arrives, you are already watching for the appeal that will surely come to strip it back. That stance grinds you down to the bone, and it is not the truth of where you stand. I mean to loosen it from the inside, not by ordering you to calm yourself, but by reading you the words that were actually entered into your record, long before you ever learned to brace. I have watched you build the case for the prosecution in places no one else can see. There is a note on your phone, a list you have never shown anyone, 2 columns where you weigh whether you have done enough to deserve the thing you are waiting on. There is the prayer that got shorter and shorter until it became a single sentence you fire off in the car before you walk into the building. There is the apology you keep drafting in your head for a wrong you already confessed years ago, as if the bench needed to hear it one more time before it would let you go. I see the careful, exhausting work of a person trying to be their own lawyer, and here is where the accusation loses its grip on you. You were never the one assigned to argue this case. You stepped into a role that was never yours to carry. There are particular hours when the accusation gets loudest, and I am present in every one of them. For one of you, it strikes deep in the night, after the house has gone still, and there is nothing left to keep the mind busy, and the old charges come back to be recited one more time, slow and itemized, while you lie there staring up into the dark. For another, it strikes the moment you step toward a room full of people who need you to be the steady one. You square your shoulders outside the door, set your face, decide to look like someone untroubled, because the ones you love are watching and the surface cannot be allowed to crack. I count what that composure costs you. I count the effort it takes to look like a person who is not on trial. None of that performance is asked of you in this room. Here the composure is allowed to fall. And hear something about all the defending you have done, because it was not foolish and it was not wasted. You have been faithful in a brutal stretch. You kept reporting to a weight that handed you no proof it was leading anywhere. The failure was never in how much you cared or how hard you argued your own case. The failure was being taught to serve as your own attorney, to build a defense out of your own performance, to keep your record clean enough, to win your own acquittal, when no one ever told you that the ruling was never going to hang on the case you could assemble for yourself. Open both hands in your lap and let the palms turn upward, the way they would if you had just set down a thick folder you have carried into every hearing for years. You do not have to make your hands feel anything. You do not have to arrange your heart first. Just let the grip come loose, the way a hand loosens when it finally stops clutching a brief it has gripped so hard the paper went soft at the corners. That small motion says a truer thing than your mouth has had the strength to say. It says, I cannot argue my own case anymore. And in this room, that is not the moment you lose. That is the moment the real defense finally stands up. There is a picture of me I need to lift out of your hands, because it has been shaping the whole way you wait. You were handed a courtroom early in life, and you were told I was the prosecutor standing in it. A god bent over a long ledger of your offenses, eyes narrowed, waiting for the slip that would let the next charge be filed. A god whose mood rose and fell with your behavior, warm on your obedient weeks, cold and quick to convict on the weeks you stumbled. The version of me you inherited was the one assembling the indictment, the figure across the room reading your record, back with a hard mouth. Some who handed you that meant no harm by it. Others used the fear on purpose. However it reached you, it was a forgery of who actually stands where in this room. Because I have never once been the prosecutor at your trial, I am the judge, and I am more than the judge. The accusation you keep hearing read aloud does not come from the bench. It rises up from the floor. It comes from the one whose whole work is to accuse, and his voice has been allowed to fill your courtroom for so long that you mistook it for the official ruling. The frown you imagined on my face was never there. I have been leaning across the bench the way one leans toward a defendant he has already decided to clear and longs to see finally believe it. Here is where the accusation loses standing. Think for a moment how differently a person waits depending on who they think holds the gavel. If you believe the one deciding your future is hunting for a reason to convict, then every delay is a danger, and every silence is a threat, and you spend the whole wait rehearsing your defense and bracing for the worst. But if you know the one who holds the gavel has already ruled in your favor and is on your side, the same wait becomes something else entirely. Not a danger to survive, but a corridor to walk, with the outcome already secured at the far end. Nothing about the length of the wait changes. What changes is who you believe is seated at the bench, and that single thing changes everything about how the waiting feels in your body. This is why the wrong picture of me has cost you so much. It did not only make you afraid, it made you read my slowness as suspicion, when it was never suspicion at all. A slow answer is not a guilty verdict. The God you imagined withholding the answer until you proved yourself was a counterfeit, and you have been waiting in dread before a courtroom that was already quiet, already settled, already on your side. I want to take that picture out of your hands and let it drop, because you cannot rest in a room where you believe the judge is against you, and you were never meant to spend your wait in fear of a ruling that has already come back kind. Let me bring you a sentence that was put on record for you a very long time ago. No slogan, no tidy line for people whose lives already run smoothly. It traveled inside a letter carried to a small, hard-pressed gathering of believers in the city of Rome. They were losing on every front. A number of them had failed in ways that would hold up in any court. Some had disowned my name the moment soldiers appeared. Some had handed over their own friends to save their own skin. They huddled together, convinced the case against them was airtight and the sentence was only a matter of waiting. Then the letter was read aloud in that frightened room, and inside it, I handed them. And you set down exactly where you are, the words that quiet every accusation ever filed against one of my children. Feel the tenderness folded into it. This was never meant for a debate among people who already feel secure in their standing. I did not put it on record so experts could dissect its phrasing across a table. It was placed there for the exhausted soul hearing it in this moment, the one whose wait has dragged on so long that the delay itself feels like proof of guilt, the one who has been running their own prosecution for years, the one who needs to hear in plain language with nothing hidden in it, the simple fact of where they actually stand. It was set down for the weary one slumped in the dock, not the comfortable one watching from the gallery. It was set down for you. Hear how this is built, because the power is in its shape. It does not argue your innocence. It moves the case out of the accuser's hands entirely. Romans chapter 8, verses 33 and 34. Who shall bring a charge against God's elect? It is God who justifies. Who is to condemn? Listen to the order of it. The first thing spoken is not a defense of your record. It is a challenge thrown across the whole room. Who shall bring a charge? It is a dare to the prosecution to step forward, and the dare goes unanswered, because the only one with the authority to convict has already crossed to the other side of your case. Read the second line slowly. It is the judge himself who declares you in the right. The very one you feared was the prosecutor turns out to be your justifier. Take that apart for a moment. The hand you imagined writing the next charge is the same hand that signed your clearance. And then the question that ends every hearing, who is to condemn? Not, who might still find something, who is to condemn? And the room goes silent, because the bench has already ruled, and no voice from the floor outranks the bench. The one who accuses you may keep his voice, but he was never handed the gavel. Stay with that first question a little longer, because it is doing more than it seems. It is not saying the charges are too few to bother with. It is asking who in the whole created order has the standing to file them and make them stick. Line up everyone whose accusation you have feared, the voice of the parent who told you that you would never amount to anything, the voice of the failure you cannot stop replaying, the voice of the people who knew the worst chapter of your story and decided that chapter was the whole book. The voice inside your own chest that has been the harshest prosecutor of all. Bring every one of them into the room and let them step to the front to file their charge. Then watch them fall silent, one after another, because not one of them outranks the one on the throne. And the one on the throne has already declared you in the right. The accusation does not need to be disproven. It needs to be overruled, and it already has been. You are acquitted, not accused. Sit with the strangeness of that for one breath, because the accuser can speak, but he cannot overturn an acquittal. He still has a voice. He has simply lost the verdict. Acquitted does not mean the accuser goes silent. It means his charge no longer stands. He can keep reading the old indictment all day long, and not a word of it can reach the ruling. And hear the mercy folded into the next clause, because it is the most tender part of all. The one who justifies is the same one who was condemned in your place and then raised, and who now stands not against you, but for you. The judge did not stay distant from the accused. The judge stepped down into the place of the accused. My son stood where you feared you would stand, bore the sentence you could not survive, and satisfied the charge in full. The ruling stands because the payment was made. A sentence already served cannot be handed down again. A debt paid by the son cannot be collected from the child. You are not being told you were never accused? You were. The charges were real. Some of them you brought against yourself. But notice what happened to them. The accuser can file, but the bench has ruled. The penalty was carried by the only one whose payment the court would ever accept. And once it was paid in full, the seat in the dock was left empty, and the case closed in your favor. That is why no charge will hold. Not because the prosecution had nothing to say, because the price was already settled, and a settled debt cannot be charged a second time. And see how the whole order has been turned over. In the courtroom you have been imagining, you stand alone at the front, the prosecutor reads, and the one on the bench waits to be convinced. In the real one, the ruling was spoken before the prosecutor finished drawing breath, and what was spoken is not a question about your worth, but a declaration of your place with me. That word justified does not mean you were found to have done enough. It means the one with every right to condemn chose instead to set you in the right at his own cost and entered it as a finished fact. You do not have to earn that ruling back tomorrow. A ruling like that is not on loan. It does not get reviewed because you had a bad week. It was spoken once by the only voice in the room that counts, and it stands. Acquitted is not how you feel. It is what I ruled. There is a difference between the two, and your whole piece depends on which one you build on. On a heavy afternoon, the feeling will tell you the trial reopened, that the bench changed its mind, that the old charge is back on the calendar. The feeling is not the ruling. An accusation, however loud, has no power to reverse a verdict it cannot reach, and the bench does not change its mind to match the weather in your chest. The truth already spoken over you holds whether you feel it or not. There is something else carried in my word, for the days the accuser raises his voice again, and I will not quote it to you as a separate text, but I want you to feel it underneath this one. There came a moment when the accuser, the one who had stood before me day and night to charge the ones I love, was thrown down, and the ones he had been accusing were said to overcome him not by the strength of their own defense, but by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. Hear what that means for your weight. You do not win your case by out-arguing the voice that accuses you. You win it because the charge was already answered by a sacrifice you did not make and could not have made, and your part is only to keep speaking back. The ruling that was already handed down. The accuser was cast out of the courtroom. He still shouts from outside the door, but he no longer has standing inside it. Close your eyes for the length of one sentence, the next one, and let it be read over you as if from the bench. The case against you is closed, and it will not be reopened. Stay there a moment longer than feels natural. Then breathe out slowly, emptier than you would normally allow. The way a whole room exhales when the gavel finally falls, and everyone realizes it is over. Now look back to the question I set before you at the start. Do not confuse the corridor with the courtroom. You have been treating the wait as a hearing, reading the slow stretch of days as a deliberation over whether you deserve the thing you keep asking for. And here is the reason it keeps landing on you that way. No one ever explained that the verdict comes first and the wait comes second. You assumed the silence meant a jury still in session, but there is no jury in session. The ruling was entered before the waiting ever began. The wait is not the trial. What you are passing through is not a court weighing your worth. It is the span between a release already commanded and a release you have not yet stepped out into. The slowness was never the trial. The slowness is the stretch between the gavel and the open door. And there is more in my word. For the days the accusing voice gets loud again, because it will. I once promised that no weapon formed against you would prosper, and that every tongue that rises against you in judgment, you would prove to be in the wrong. Read that as a courtroom promise, because that is what it is. The charges will keep being drafted. The accuser does not stop filing motions just because he keeps losing. But not one of them will stand, because the one who would have to uphold them has already ruled the other way. His voice still echoes. His authority is gone. He can read you the old indictment all day, but he cannot make the bench agree with him, and the bench is the only voice that counts. And here is what this means for the very thing you are carrying. The charge was answered before fear could finish reading it. You have been hearing the slowness as a sentence against you, as proof that the ruling must have come back guilty after all, or the door would have opened by now. But you have been reading the delay wrong. The slowness is not deliberation. It is not the court still weighing whether someone like you should be set free. The release was already signed. What you mistook for a jury still arguing your worth was only the time it takes for an order, already given, to reach your hands. I am not asking you to enjoy the waiting. I am asking you to stop hearing it as a charge. Now, I have to be honest with you about what this ruling does and does not guarantee, because someone has probably handed you a cheap version of it, and I refuse to. An acquittal in this court is not a promise that the outcome you are waiting for shows up by a deadline you can mark. It is not a guarantee that the money comes through, that the test result turns clean, that the door opens on the calendar you have drawn, that the one who left walks back through it. The voices that hand you those guarantees with a timetable attached are not reading from the official ruling, and the day their timetable fails, your trust in me should not collapse along with their broken promise. What the acquittal actually hands you is sturdier than any single result, and a circumstance that stubbornly refuses to move cannot reverse it. It is this: that you stand uncondemned, that you are owned and named by me, that your place as my child holds steady, whether the week brings good news or bad. Standing on that, you can take an answer that breaks your heart and still not be a ruined person, because what was holding you up was never the answer. It was the ruling. So if you have ever heard someone say the door is already ordered open, hear me put that in its right order, because the first door I am opening for you is not a circumstance on your timeline. The first door is the freedom to stop standing trial inside your own chest. It is release from the daily labor of defending your own worth. The provision, the healing, the restored relationship, the opening you are aching for, those longings are real, every one of them registered with me. And I will answer each according to a wisdom and a timing you cannot yet see. But the freedom that comes first is the one no weak can repossess. That you are cleared, that you belong to me, that you no longer have to argue for the right to exist. That door is open now. The rest I hold in my own hands. So let the word release mean its deeper thing and not its shallow one. Release is not the world rearranging itself at last to prove you were right. Release is carrying yourself through the long, unfinished middle of your wait as a cleared child instead of a trembling defendant, and finding that the freedom does not depend on the situation finally cooperating. That freedom cannot be repossessed by a hard month because it was never deposited in your circumstances to begin with. Build your peace on a single outcome and it will be overturned on every bad afternoon. Build it on the answered charge and it holds through any week, because the charge was settled in a room this week cannot reach. You are acquitted in the only court that matters. So here is a small thing you can carry into the rest of your week, something light and easy to hold. When the inner prosecutor rises, press one thumb gently into the center of your other palm and say, "The case is closed." That is the whole of it. You do not have to take the stand. There is no argument to win, no exhibits to gather. If it helps, you can lengthen it on the hardest days and breathe out the longer line beneath your breath. I am acquitted in the only court that matters. Or simply this, when the weight is the thing pressing on you. The weight is not the trial. I am acquitted. Then go on with your day and leave the accuser reciting to an empty room. It will not feel like acquittal the first time the line leaves your mouth. The 10th time may move nothing in you either. The dock has been your seat for years, and a body does not walk out of a courtroom it has lived in just because someone announces the trial is over. But after enough repetitions of meeting the charge with the ruling rather than with your own defense, you will catch the prosecutor's voice growing thinner without quite noticing when it happened. A while later, you will find yourself waiting on something and forgetting to brace for a sentence. A while after that, you will realize whole stretches of days have gone by without a single appearance in that inner dock. The courtroom still stands. You have simply stopped reporting to it. Do not lose heart when the old habit returns, because return it will. You will lose your grip on the verdict and find yourself mounting a defense again before you even register that you have begun, reciting your good deeds, drafting your excuses, trying to talk the bench into a ruling that was entered in your favor long before you parted your lips. That is fine. The ruling does not grow weaker on the days it slips your mind. It is not a practice you must perform perfectly to keep it valid. It is a settled truth you are slowly learning to put your weight upon, and not even your forgetting can cancel what has already been spoken over you. Whenever you catch yourself arguing a case that has long been closed, you can break off mid-thought, let the breath go, and remember that the work was finished without your help. There may even be a strange grief in leaving the dock, and I want you to know that is normal too. For years, the trial gave your fear a job to perform. Defending yourself felt like control. Bracing for the sentence felt like being prepared. So when you finally let yourself rest in the ruling, a part of you may miss the fight, the way a person can miss a burden simply because they carried it for so long. Let that pass. You can set the defense down without losing your footing, because your footing was never your own argument. It was the ruling of the one who loves you, and a ruling like that holds firm the moment you finally lay your weight down on it. And one more, if you want it, for the breath right before you step into something hard, the appointment, the difficult conversation, the news you have been dreading. Before you go in, Hold the order I traced for you. Verdict first, then wait, then release. You are not walking in to be judged. The judging is over. You are only living out the span between the ruling and the door. You're not stepping into a courtroom to learn whether you belong. You're stepping into a room where that was decided long before this day arrived. Do not measure my ruling by how long the wait has run. The wait is only the corridor. The verdict was spoken in the room you cannot see, and the verdict is acquitted. You are not a defendant whose fate is still being argued. You are a child whose name has been cleared. You are not waiting for a sentence. You are learning to live acquitted. The case is closed. Your long wait did not reopen it. Your failure did not move the verdict. Your fear did not become the judge. The accuser filed against you and was overruled. The judge stepped down and took your sentence himself. The son paid what fear keeps trying to charge again. You are acquitted, and no charge against you will stand. Amen. If you have been sitting in a dock waiting on a sentence that was already lifted, write the word acquitted in the comments below. You will find 7 brief letters waiting in the pinned comment, enough to walk beside you through a full week, written for the heart that keeps confusing the wait with the trial. Take them. Share this with someone who has been mistaking a long delay for a verdict against them, and stay close so the next word can find you.